Ever get the feeling like, what makes America America? Beyond the borders and the history books, what is it really?
Right. What's at the heart of it all?
Exactly. And I think a big part of it is, well, American values, like freedom, opportunity, all those big ideas we hear about.
Yeah, like those values are more than just words. They're woven into the fabric of the country, wouldn't you say?
Totally. And that's what we're diving into today, really unpacking those core American values, seeing where they came from and how they shape American life.
It's going to be fascinating to dig into this.
I think so too. And to help us out, we've got our expert with us ready to share their insights. So are you ready to take a deep dive into the heart of American values?
Absolutely. Let's jump right in.
Awesome. Now, we're talking about some pretty significant values here. Freedom, individualism, practicality, volunteerism. Oh, and we can't forget abundance, mobility, patriotism, and progress. These are some biggies.
They really are, and they're all interconnected in really interesting ways.
Right. Like it's not just a list, it's this web of ideas. And one of the things that really struck me while researching this was how these values, they didn't just magically appear. Yeah.
Absolutely not. They're deeply rooted in American history and experience.
Yeah, like take individualism, for instance.
Yeah.
You could trace that straight back to, well, think about those early pioneers, right?
Just striking out on their own and into the wilderness, relying on their own skills and grit to survive.
Exactly. That whole image of like a family in a covered wagon facing the unknown, it's so deeply embedded in the American story.
It really is. And it speaks to that sense of self-reliance, that independent spirit that's so central to how many Americans see themselves.
And it's fascinating how that spirit of self-reliance kind of bumps up against another core value,
Mm.
abundance. The
Yeah.
idea of America as a land of opportunity,
Yeah.
a place of vast resources. But how did that hold up today? I mean, with climate change, with resource depletion, are we really still a land of abundance in the same way?
It's a really crucial question. We're being forced to rethink what abundance means in the 21st century. Maybe it's less about limitless resources and more about ingenuity.
Resourcefulness.
Right. And sustainability. It's about finding new ways to thrive within limits.
It's almost like that pioneer spirit is being called upon again, but in a different way.
I think you're right, facing new frontiers, so to speak. But another value tied to this idea of abundance is mobility. In a lot of cultures, moving around a lot might be seen as, I don't know, maybe rootless or unstable. But in America, it's often seen as a good thing. Like you're ambitious, you're going after what you want.
It's
I,
interesting, right?
Right.
It really is.
Uh,
And it speaks to that belief in self-determination that we were talking about earlier. You have the freedom to choose your path, even if it means picking up and moving to pursue a dream.
the classic go west young man idea.
Exactly. It's all about opportunity and having the agency to go after it.
Which is funny because for all that emphasis on individual drive, Americans are also known for, well, volunteerism. It's like this interesting paradox.
Hmm.
Be self-reliant, but also be ready to lend a hand. And those ideas aren't mutually exclusive. Think about those pioneers again. They relied on their individual skills, but also on their communities.
Right. You had to work together to survive.
Exactly. And that spirit of helping one another, of giving back, it's still a big part of American culture. Think about all those community organizations, those volunteer groups. It's people stepping up saying, how can I help?
And that sense of community, of shared purpose, it also plays into how Americans express patriotism, right? I mean, think about all the flags, the anthems. It's more than just national pride, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's about local pride, too. Pride in your town, your state, your community.
So it's like patriotism on multiple levels.
Exactly. It's deeply personal, rooted in specific places and experiences. It's what makes it so powerful, I think.
It's that feeling of belonging. And speaking of things that are deeply personal, we can't wrap up this deep dive without talking about, well, the American dream. That idea that anyone, no matter their background, can achieve success through hard work.
Mhm.
But how much does that hold true today? I mean, it's a powerful idea, but is it always a reality?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The American dream is still a powerful aspiration, the belief that you can work your way up. But we
Right.
have to acknowledge that it's not always a level playing field.
Right. There are systemic barriers, inequalities that make it harder for some people to get ahead.
Exactly. So the American dream, while inspiring, needs to be constantly examined and reevaluated, making sure everyone has a fair shot.
And that's what makes this whole conversation so important. Because these values, they aren't static, unchanging things. They evolve, they're challenged, they're reinterpreted.
And that's how it should be. Values are living things. They adapt with us as a society.
And that's what makes me so curious. I mean, as we move further into the 21st century with all its challenges and changes, How do you think these American values will continue to evolve? What new values might even emerge?
That's a question for all of us to consider. What do we want those values to look like in the future? What kind of America do we want to build? It's a conversation worth having.
And on that note, we'll leave you all with some food for thought. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the ever-evolving landscape of American values.